Welcome to the regular Board of Public Works and Safety meeting held here at the George Keller Public Assembly Room, Lawrence Governmental Center, September 14th, 2023, meeting convening at 5 p.m. We will call the meeting to order. Let the record reflect we have a quorum to do business for the city today. We do have before us minutes of the regular meeting on August 24th, 2023. Are there any corrections to those minutes? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the minutes of August 24th?
Motion to approve.
By Mr. Clark. I will second the motion. And by roll call, all in favor will say aye. So, Mr. Clark?
Aye.
And myself, Mr. Reeser, aye. And Mrs. Browner is going to abstain. The meeting minutes vote. Unfinished business, none before the board. We go directly into new business. Item A, approval of change order number 1. For
Doug,
yes, sir.
Your microphone is breaking up.
Hello?
Yeah, same thing on my end. I can barely hear them.
Go ahead and turn it a little.
Let me try it.
Yeah, try it.
How's that?
Is that better?
Testing. Test 1, 2. Test.
Is that better?
Better or worse?
So far, so good.
Oh, okay.
Let's try that.
It's better, yeah.
All
It
right,
is
well,
better.
That's a little better. Maybe why they had it turned
Yeah,
up
maybe.
there. All right. Back to item A, approval of change order number 1 for the 2023 CCMG resurfacing contract with Midwest Paving. Are there questions on that change order? Hearing none, is there a motion?
Hey, this is Sri. I can just give you a little bit background on that change order.
Okay, sure.
So CCMG, this is to add. So be part of the project. We found out that Richard Avenue, which has been worked on multiple projects between water and sanitary, needs some resurfacing because of the number of patches that went into that street. And working with the controller, we kind of figured out that we didn't use all of the CCMG money from last year. So we thought that is the best use of the money to change order Richard Avenue to this year's CCMG. So this change order is to add Richard Avenue between 46. I can't remember the exact limits. I'm sorry, I don't have that in front of me, but it's just west of Franklin. That piece more like a mile piece of Richard Avenue to resurface to add it to Midwest's current contract.
Mm-hmm.
I think I caught most of that.
Yeah, it was from 48 to 56. I've got the agreement in front of us.
Yep, 48 to 56, correct.
Yep.
Okay. Questions?
So basically, it's just a 3-inch resurfacing mill and fill of Richard Avenue just to make sure it's drivable.
Okay.
All right. Questions? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
By Mrs. Browner, is there a second?
I second.
Second by Mr. Clark. Questions on the motion? Hearing none, by roll call vote, Mrs. Browner?
Aye.
Mr. Clark?
Aye.
And Mr. Reeser will vote aye. That change order is approved 3-0. Item B is approval of professional service agreement with SAFE Built LLC to develop new ordinance related to special event permits.
So we've been having some kind of questions about, we currently have a policy that everybody who has events with more than 50 people in attendance have to come to us for a permit. It's just we found out it's been a policy for years, but so in order to properly enforce it, we need a ordinance to back up. So we are hiring this consultant. It's pretty a big ordinance that we need to come up with. So we hired this consultant who has done this kind of work for other agencies to come up to help us come up with a draft ordinance that we can circulate, get buy-in from the police and all the different agencies and send it to council for their approval. So this contract is to come up for the consultant to start that work on that ordinance. My goal is to have an draft ordinance in the next 30 days to send it out to all parties for review and for comments, and then send it out to the council as a final version.
Sounds
So
like-
this consultant will look at all the similar ordinance in and around central Indiana. The different municipalities have similar ordinances for special events. So they're gonna look at all the different ordinance and come up with an ordinance that can fit our needs. And it, of course, get reviewed by LPD and other agencies to make sure they are on board.
Sounds like something we've needed for a while, so I'm glad we're going forward with that. Other questions about it?
Is there a cost to this approval? I don't see a dollar amount.
Yes, there is.
Looking at it.
I think it's 6,000 is a total not to exceed $6,000.
Okay,
Correct.
looking to.
Yeah, it's
Yes.
6,000.
Not to exceed 6,000.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions?
So what are we not doing now that this consultant will recommend that we do?
So right now we do not have an ordinance. So we have a policy which says that anybody who is throwing an event would have to come up with a permit application. But it's a policy which is not legally bound by. So we have run into some concerns with some events that we thought we can shut it down, but we don't have a legal backup. So this is going to be an actual ordinance that will go to the council. It might have different descriptions on what those events are going to be, whether it's going to be 50 people, because Indianapolis have an ordinance which says 250 people. So they're going to look at all the different similar size cities and figure out what is a good size, what are those events. We don't want to be go overboard, and we don't want to be lenient. So we're going to come up with a definition of those events, and, do all that stuff and figure out what is the dollar amount that we can apply to that permit, because it might take law enforcement. If something happens at the events, it has to be a law enforcement who has to go there. So we have some, right now we don't have any of that, Mark. So this is going to establish a legal way for us to actually enforce this special event.
Okay. Well, thank you. That
It's
helps.
a pretty heavy process for them to come up with look at all the different agencies, look at the similar agencies, figure what those definitions are, figure what those events are, the size, the dollar amount, all that.
Okay, so I'm sure Caitlin will be involved in the.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
She'll review it before it goes to the council.
All right. Well, thank
Yeah.
you.
Definitely.
Thank you for recognizing that. That's good.
Yep.
That's great.
Any other questions? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve professional service agreement?
Motion to approve professional service agreement.
By Mrs. Browner. Is there a second? If you can read yours.
Second.
By Mr. Clark. Questions on the motion? Hearing none, by roll call vote. Mrs. Browner,
Aye.
Mr. Clark, and Mr. Reeser, aye. So that carries 3-0. We will move forward with that service agreement. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item C, approval of towing and recovery contract. And I think we have that. Okay.
Unless you guys have any questions.
Yeah. Are there any questions for
I
the?
can speak on that.
Okay. This is Caitlin.
Yeah, just quickly, this is basically the same contract as last time, except for with a few provisions that LPD added. We've had the chief and the deputy chiefs and Tracy, everyone look into this and review it. So Zors has already signed, so I feel good about where it's at.
Very good. I had a question that sometimes comes up not from just me, but other citizens, on where there's an accident that does occur. I'm not sure if our officers are involved with cleanup or if, in fact, that should go with the towing company.
So anytime there's an accident,
Yeah.
the towing service provider is to clean up.
Okay.
So it's not for the street department, it's not for the officers or LFD. It's straight for, it's the towing company itself. That's one thing that we really because we had issues with that before.
Right.
And, with debris left in the roadway, and then when you have to get the road back open.
Right.
So that's where they are responsible for all cleanups.
So let's say a citizen says there isn't maybe proper cleanup. Should they contact our police department and then the police
Yes.
go to the next step?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, that's just good to know on record what our process is and what we should be doing. So any other questions? Also, that's just one I had. Thank you. On the towing or the...
Would it
Thank
be a council decision to extend the contract so it's not a renewable every 2 years?
Has to be a Board of Works.
Yes. Oh, well, the council passed an ordinance that requires us to do this RFP every 2 years. So you all as the Board of Works, you do the RFP, you do the contract, but we are bound by an ordinance making us do it every 2 years.
Okay.
So they could either remove that or say 4 years or say that, you guys can extend it. But right now we do have to put an RFP out every 2 years by ordinance.
Okay. So can the Board of Public Works recommend it be extended to the council, or would that be something we should look at later down the road?
That's a decision for you all. You could definitely pass a resolution or make a oral recommendation or attend a meeting at any point, during this contract and say that it would just save resources to allow for, year-long extensions. That's definitely an option.
Okay. Well, we would obviously consult with the police department. I was just curious if that was an option. So thank you.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Any other questions? Okay,
None.
hearing none, is there approval for the towing recovery contract? It is Zors, Inc.
Motion to approve the towing and recovering contract with Zor.
By Mrs. Browner. Is there a second?
Second.
By Mr. Clark. And are there questions on the motion? Hearing none,
Yep.
all in favor signify by roll call. Mrs. Browner
Aye.
is aye. Mr. Clark
Aye.
and Mr. Reeser, aye. The motion carries 3-0. That is approved. Item D is approval of annual online procured test terms and conditions of lease with FPSI. We have that before us. Are there any questions on that?
No, this is just,
It's just a renewal for the hiring process. That's
Right.
the firm that we use for our hiring of our officers.
We've done this in the past, I know, for several years. So,
Yes, sir.
any other questions about this? Come up. Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the annual online protocol testing terms and conditions with FPSI?
motion to approve.
By Mrs. Browner. Is there a second?
I second.
By Mr. Clark. Questions on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor by roll call vote. Mrs. Browner,
Aye.
Mr. Clark,
Aye.
and Mr. Reeser is aye, so that will also carry 3-0. Thank you. Item E is approval of a task order number 12 with Shrewsbury for 2024-1 CCMG and to update the asset management plan.
So this is Sri. So this
This is
is just
Sri.
like every year. Every year we are still planning to go after the community crossing grant from INDOT for 2024. Usually the call for that grant. The grant comes early January with a completion date of, we have last 2 years, the January 31st was the deadline for those applications. So we usually start it sooner than later because there's a lot of field investigation that will go in to figure out the condition of the streets and all that stuff. And also by December 1st, we have to submit an asset management plan to INDOT. Just every year we do that. So Shrewsbury has been doing both for us for the last 5 years. So this is for helping for helping us to continue doing that for next year. Submit the asset management plan by December of this year, and also help us with the application for January of next year.
Questions for Sri?
Well, I just would say for the record, we have been granted community crossing grants the last couple of years. So I think
Many years, 6 years.
Yeah. So I think thank you to Shrewsbury for their help.
Yep.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? Is there a motion to approve task order number 12?
Motion to approve.
By Mrs. Browner. Is there a second?
I second.
By Mr. Clark. Questions on the motion? Hearing none, by roll call vote again. Mrs. Browner?
Aye.
Mr. Clark?
Aye.
And Mr. Reeser, aye. So that task order 12 is approved. Thank you. 3-0.
Thank you.
Item F, and our final item on the agenda today, approval of supplemental amendment to the agreement for professional services related to the opioid settlements. And I suppose Caitlin will speak to that a little bit.
Yes, thank you. We just received this from our counsel for the opioid litigation. And a while back, you guys approved an agreement where the attorneys would actually get way less of the gross recovery. It used to be 33, now it's 9. And that all deals with how Indiana has set out the statutes for these settlements. That was for the distributors in Johnson & Johnson. So this would just make this same policy applicable to other settlements with the CVS, Walgreens, et cetera. So I have no concerns. It's just applying the same policy and actually reducing the fees that we're giving to attorneys.
Okay. Any questions on the settlement agreement? Hearing none.
No, yeah.
Mr. Clark, I'm sorry.
No, you were just breaking up. I couldn't hear you.
Okay. We'll entertain a motion for approval of the supplemental amendment to the agreement professional services related to the opioid settlement.
Motion to approve.
Mrs. Browner, is there a second?
I second.
By Mr. Clark. Are there questions on the motion? Hearing none, by roll call vote again. Mrs. Browner?
Aye.
And Mr. Clark?
Aye.
And Mr. Reeser will also vote aye. That agreement is voted in at a 3-0 figure there. Comments of administration today? Corey, you have anything for the good of the cause? She does.
Thank you. I just want to share some upcoming events that we have this weekend. The Friends of Fort Harrison are hosting Barbecue and Blues. Music starts at noon and goes to about 5:30. That